For 6.5 years, he played the role the world wanted to believe. The grieving husband with the shaking voice. The man who stared into cameras with wet eyes and begged, "Please, just come home." Reporters comforted him. Neighbors prayed with him. Viewers believed him. But every time Richard Satchwell walked down the stairs in that small house in Youghal, his shoes clicked against the concrete, hiding the truth. Because Tina Satchwell wasn't missing. She was beneath his feet. And every desperate plea he made to bring her home was spoken while he stood on her grave. Richard insisted he'd never hurt her. He promised that one day she'd turn up or contact the guards, and it would all prove he'd done nothing wrong. In time, the truth did come out. Just not the way he claimed. Tina Satchwell was 45 when she disappeared in March 2017. Born Tina Dinjavan on November 30th, 1972, in Fermoy, County Cork, she was petite, about 5'4", with blonde, shoulder-length hair and striking blue eyes. Friends remembered her Tweety bird tattoo, her belly-button piercing, and her warm, bubbly personality. But Tina's early life carried a hidden pain. She was raised by her grandmother, Florence, believing Florence was her mother. Later, when she searched for her birth certificate, she discovered her biological mother was Mary Collins, the woman Tina thought was her sister. Even so, Tina stayed devoted to the grandmother who had raised her with love. As she got older, Tina built a life around the things that made her feel like herself. Fashion was her passion. She had an expensive eye, and her home was filled with clothes, some still with tags. She would buy items, wear them, then resell them at car boot sales across County Cork. Those sales weren't just business, they were community. Tina was always impeccably dressed, and sometimes even matched her chihuahua, Ruby, to her own outfit. Ruby and Heidi, her dogs, and a parrot named Valentine were the children she never had. Tina adored animals deeply, and those close to her said she rarely went anywhere without them. She also loved the beach and swimming, and when she later moved to Youghal, the coastal town felt like somewhere she could breathe. People who truly knew Tina understood she had layers. She could be bright and social, but she was also shy and private. Her GP of nearly 2 decades described her as friendly, open, and in good health. No serious medical issues, no documented mental health diagnosis. Her brother Tom's suicide in 2012 devastated her, and she bought Ruby in 2014 to help her cope with grief. Then there was Richard. Tina met Richard Satchwell on March 3, 1989, in Coventry, near Leicester, England. She was 17. He was 22. Richard told his brother he'd marry her the moment he saw her. He called her his trophy wife, someone out of his league. They moved fast. He proposed in October 1989. They married on Tina's 20th birthday, November 30th, 1991, in Oldham, England. But their marriage began with an ultimatum. Richard's family was anti-Irish. They told him to choose them or Tina. He chose Tina. He cut off his mother and never spoke to her again. None of his family attended the wedding. To some, that sounded romantic. But looking back, it was also the start of isolation. Tina and Richard against the world, with Richard controlling the boundaries. Richard portrayed himself as obsessed in a loving way. He told people he worshipped Tina, ran baths for her every night, pampered her, knew every detail about her body and clothing sizes. But Tina's half-sister, Lorraine Howard, later described Richard as obsessive, possessive, controlling, and odd. He criticized Tina's friends, picking them apart until her circle shrank. He wanted to know where she was at all times. Tina confided that she felt trapped, that she couldn't truly leave because Richard would follow her anywhere. Their world became just the two of them. They moved from England to Fermoy in the early 1990s. Tina was known there, loved there. Then in 2016, they sold their Fermoy home and bought a house at 3 Grattan Street in Youghal for $52,000. In Youghal, Tina was barely known. Neighbours rarely saw her without Richard. Financially, they struggled, living on social welfare, their bank account often overdrawn. Richard also had a criminal past, 14 convictions between 1999 and 2004, including theft and social welfare fraud. In 2002, he served time in Cork prison for fraud. Then came the last day Tina was seen. Sunday, March 19, 2017. Tina and Richard attended a car boot sale in Carrigtwohill, about 35 kilometres from their home. Tina was in good spirits. She bought a black jacket, a dress, and expensive perfume. She spoke with a friend, John Keoghan, who joked about her meeting another man. Tina responded firmly. She had one man only. Those were the last words anyone outside her home heard her speak. 4 days later, on Friday, March 24th, Richard drove past his local station and went to Fermoy Garda station to report Tina had left home on March 20th. The Garda described him as matter-of-fact, not overly emotional. Richard claimed that Monday morning he made Tina breakfast, tea and toast with fruit and yogurt, then drove to Aldi in Dungarvan to buy fish and parrot food. He said he left around 10 a.m. or 10:30 a.m., returned around noon, and found Tina gone, with 2 suitcases and $26,000 cash supposedly kept in the attic. At first, the case was treated like someone who left home voluntarily. It wasn't until May 11th, nearly 2 months later, that Richard filed a formal missing person report and provided photos for media appeals. Then, Richard became the face of Tina's disappearance. Between June 2017 and March 2018, he gave at least 14 recorded interviews. He appeared on major Irish TV and radio shows, making emotional pleas to Tina. On RTA's Crime Call, he looked into the camera and begged her to come home, saying the pets missed her and he couldn't go on not knowing. To viewers, it looked like heartbreak. But behind the scenes, his behavior raised serious questions. Just 10 days after Tina vanished, Richard texted Tina's cousin Sarah Howard, offering her a chest freezer. The next day, he advertised it online, saying it worked perfectly and just needed a clean. By late April and early May, he was selling Tina's belongings at car boot sales, her clothes, boots, bags, accessories. When people asked where Tina was, he told elaborate stories. She was sick. She'd gone to England for treatment. She had infections. She had lost weight. She couldn't come to the sales anymore. Meanwhile, the black jacket and dress Tina bought on her last day out were found hanging in the living room, unworn. The first major search of their home happened on June 7, 2017. Gardaí searched for blood using luminol, but found nothing. They seized Richard's laptop and phone devices. But they didn't dig under the stairs. They didn't use a cadaver dog. They didn't excavate. And the photos taken that day would become crucial years later. They showed relatively new stairs, fresh plasterboard, and a red brick wall beneath the stairwell, changes that didn't match an ordinary home renovation. Over the following years, Gardaí searched widely: harbours, woodland, scrubland. Hundreds of leads were investigated. Dozens of sightings reported. Nothing came back solid. The case stalled. Then, in August 2021, a new team began a cold case review. They re-examined everything: statements, CCTV, leads. And for the first time, they properly analyzed the digital devices seized in 2017. On Richard's laptop, investigators found a search that changed everything. On March 24, 2017, the same day Richard reported Tina missing, someone searched for quicklime and watched a video about quicklime and water twice. Quicklime can be used in building, but it's also known to speed decomposition and reduce odor in burials. Then, in early 2022, mobile phone data brought another breakthrough. CCTV showed Richard collecting social welfare at Youghal Post Office at 11:10 a.m. on March the 20th, meaning he wasn't in Dungarvan like he claimed. Phone location data showed he returned home and stayed there from about 11:10 until 12:50, a 100-minute window where his story said he was out shopping. But the data placed him at home. By 2022, investigators concluded Tina was dead and had met her death unlawfully, but they still didn't have her body. In 2022, a forensic archaeologist was brought in to review the case, focusing on concealed human remains. The review highlighted a common pattern in domestic homicide. Perpetrators create false narratives, file misleading reports, and dispose of victims close to home. And the structural changes under the stairs in the 2017 photos were impossible to ignore. So, in October 2023, Gardaí returned to 3 Grattan Street, this time with excavators, cadaver dogs, and a forensic team. Richard was arrested on suspicion of murder. A cadaver dog named Fern showed immediate interest under the stairs. Investigators lifted the old flooring and found a patch of newer concrete, a rectangular section different from the rest. On the night of October 11th, they broke through. About 64 centimeters down, they found black plastic sheeting. The next morning, a human hand was uncovered. And then, slowly, carefully, the burial was excavated. Tina had been there the whole time. Dental records confirmed the remains were hers. Her Tweety bird tattoo was still visible. Her wallet was found in her dressing gown pocket, with her public service card and store loyalty cards. After Tina was discovered, Richard changed his story again. He now claimed Tina attacked him with a chisel near the stairs, and he killed her in self-defense by holding her dressing gown belt to her neck until she died. He claimed he kept her body in the house, then moved it to a chest freezer in the shed, unplugged, before digging under the stairs and burying her in the sitting room. He described working like a robot, digging until his knuckles bled. He said he wrapped her in black plastic, buried her face down, poured over 3 feet of concrete, and built a brick wall and plasterboard to hide it all. Then he went on TV for years, begging for her return. Richard Satchwell's trial began in late April 2025 in Dublin. The prosecution described him as a manipulator, using emotion as a shield. The evidence included the laptop searches, the lies about his movements, and the chilling timeline built from phone and CCTV data. The jury also saw his media interviews, clip after clip of him pleading, crying, insisting Tina was still out there. On May 2025, after deliberations, the jury returned a unanimous verdict: guilty of murder. Richard was sentenced to life imprisonment. Outside court, Tina's family spoke about who she really was: kind, loving, gentle, devoted to her animals. That's how they wanted her remembered, not as a headline, not as a missing poster, and not as a body hidden beneath concrete. When Tina's remains were found in October 2023, More than 200 people attended a vigil in Yeovil. Many brought their dogs, a tribute to how much Tina loved animals and how much she would have loved to see that kind of loyalty. In the end, Tina was finally brought home, not by Richard's pleas, not by his interviews, not by his performance, but by persistence, evidence, and a team that refused to let her story stay buried. And when the truth finally broke through the concrete, it revealed what had been there all along. Tina never left. She was taken, and for years the man who claimed to love her most lived above her silence.